in 1968, with Al's leadership, and I have a tremendous amount of respect for that gentleman. I worked with him real close. In later years, when I became a Grand Lodge rep, he guided me in doing a lot of things. He was the one that got us the voluntary savings plan. He was the one that got us the job numbers switched. In other words, number one used to be the forest, or the most highly paid person there. Then they went to A and B above one because they had no place to add any other numbers. He flipped it around and put number one on the bottom and number 10 on the top. It sounds like a small thing, but when you're talking to people about the job descriptions, it's easier to talk if you're all covering the same subject. Al Schultz had me approved to go through every aerospace company on the West Coast. And the object was to write down the differences between what the titles are and what the people are doing versus what they should be titled. We would call a press plate maker a press plate maker. They would call them a tool and die maker 5. And they'd say, well, we can't raise your people up because we're not going to raise ours up higher than the highest tool and die maker. Well, they'd get into arguments and negotiations between the company and the union over what job were you talking about. I spent 2 weeks moving through Solaire, through Lockheed, through McDonnell Douglas, through Boeing's. I went to the Palmdale site of Lockheed. I went to the San Diego site of, can't remember the company now, but they made 48 sections. I went through all of these small shops, big shops, and kept like a diary on everything that I found. And he put me on the job evaluation committee of the International. And so I worked with them. The International put out a booklet, pamphlet, that listed the different jobs and how they compared to others. Well, I put out a pamphlet similar to theirs, but it contained a lot more accuracies into the smaller job fields. We went into negotiations. We had 1,600 job descriptions at the Boeing company. I was assigned by Al to merge those 1,600 job descriptions into the smallest packet that I could and have it make sense. I rewrote every job description in the company down to 225 jobs. They had 225 levels and classifications of employees. They could operate their plant super efficient, didn't interfere with anything. The only thing it interfered with is the supervisor's right to keep certain employees under his control without those employees having seniority. They were allowed a percentage of their workers in a particular job to hold them back from being laid off. But we ended up with 850 job descriptions. And that was quite an improvement for employees. we took and merged jobs. In the 1965 negotiations, the union won was about $2 million an hour in job inequities. That's where one job is so out of line with the industry that it justifies giving it more money. We brought those jobs, brought them together, and people, it took a while for them to understand what they were gaining by having their job put in with another job, and that is seniority. You have a bigger base of seniority. Seniority means more. So we got that. We reversed the flow of pay levels. As I said, we went from 1 is now at the bottom to where 10 was at the top. Well, we redesigned the contract book. It used to have Article A, Article B, Article 27, all in Roman numerals. We went back and reorganized every job description, everything to do with the contract, to where they went Article 1, Article 2, Article 3, Article 105. But you kept it in order. You knew where you were talking when you were talking about a contract certain area. Like I said, we got the voluntary savings plan out of Al Schultz. He worked with two attorneys in Seattle called Donaldson and Kyle. And he worked with an attorney, or no, with a CPA that those men put together, and with Al there, they made up the voluntary savings program. They also got 3 cents an hour for a medical program. We didn't have a medical program when I first hired him. He was able to get a medical program in at 3 cents an hour. Pretty cheap even in those days.
At that time, didn't you also get the cost of living?
That's when we got the cost of living increase and the voluntary savings plan.
And I believe also a few years later, dental. Am I right?
We got dental the next contract. Yeah, under Al Schultz's watch, the members gained more than they'll ever know. When I hired into the company, you had to be 30 years of age and 5 years in the company to qualify for a pension. So for the years that I was a young pup of 20 working in the plant, I was accumulating no pension credits because I wasn't the right age. I didn't have the seniority in at that time. And he straightened out that program, and like I say, he added the voluntary savings plan to it. And there are members of ours today that are retiring that have been in the plan since it started that are walking out with almost $500,000. The hardest part in dealing with the members is that most of them, just like any other job or any other thing you vote on, you don't always understand what you're voting on or how something's going to work. And it's hard to spread the word to 50,000 workers how you're going to gain by this. But we did an awful lot of great things, I think, in the time I was there.